Hello everybody, and we are back with our second phase of the offseason now. We are going to fly through the offseason as quickly as possible, as we always do. We are here for the official Team of the Year selection, as in-game All-Americans don't really do us justice, don't do our SFA players justice, so we pick our own team here. If you want to follow along and you want to help pick, check out the full history, SFA history sheet. I will be updating it as we go along, and basically, we're going to go through all the stats from the season, all the storylines from the season, and decide who deserves to be named to the Team of the Year. So we always pick 2 quarterbacks, we pick 2 running backs, we pick 4 wide receivers, we pick 2 tight ends, we pick 5 offensive linemen, 4 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers, 3 corners, 2 safeties, and a kicker and a punter. So, without further ado, folks, let's get on into it. Pinhead is unable to join us. He is busy. So, let's get into it together here, folks, as I'm just looking at, right now, I'm looking at the stats, and you see Rex Beavers threw for over 5,000 yards. He did fantastic. He made it to the Natty. I think we have a couple fantastic options here. Flynn Saunders won the Heisman. I think it's pretty obvious that he'll get Team of the Year player number 1, right? I don't think you can go past 51 touchdowns, 4,500 yards. I think CJ Irons deserves a shout. However, the fact that he did not win the Citrus Bowl and Beavers threw for 5,000 yards, you also got to think about rushing the ball as well. He ran for 748 and 11 touchdowns. If you look at Redwine, he did not do anything rushing. Schmierman as well, not a lot of yards, not a lot of rushing. And then CJ Irons. And I think that Beavers might be the first player ever to throw for over 5,000 yards in a season. I think he's our leader. So I'm fine giving Saunders 1. Now, here's the question. Is last season we gave JT Redwine 1. Can you go Beavers over Saunders just because of playoff success? Obviously, the Heisman's a regular season award, but can you go, because Beavers had 55 total touchdowns. Okay, he had 10 rushing touchdowns, so he had 61 overall, less interceptions, or the same turnovers. Yeah, no, I think Saunders probably has to be number 1. So we'll go Flynn Saunders here at number 1. I think that's pretty obvious, and that's probably what it should be. But Rex Beavers, I think, is a very confident number 2. I think that that we probably could have put CJ Irons in there as well, but I think you got to reward the playoff run for sure. Now, any shout for Tavarius Trace? Anybody have a inkling they want to add to Tavarius Trace here? Let's check out his stats. Let me find the gotta find the A&M thing first here. So if you're following along on the thing, okay. So let's check where is. I mean, he may not even thrown for that many yards. So Trace, he went for 4180. He didn't have. Yeah, no, I don't think you can put. Yeah, no, this is the leaders, yeah. Okay, so we can always come back. Remember, we can always come back if we see something later. But for right now, we're going to do Saunders at 1, Beavers at 2. Now let's go to rushing. As you see here, the leading rusher was Kendall Bradshaw over at Tulsa. But remember, this is SFA players only. So if we go by yards, Darren Archer is 1,900 yards, 17 total touchdowns. And then you have Dale Shivers here. He got 1,616. Vanilla Vic finished with 1,580 and 23 touchdowns. And receiving-wise, he added 2 through the air. Shivers, how many did he add? All right, he had a little bit more yardage. And Darren Archer, he had about 21 total touchdowns. So what I'm looking at here, he got hurt. So we have Flynn and Beavers right now, Scoop. But I'm thinking that you go Archer and you go Vic, because Vic just has like 60 less yards, but he has 7 more touchdowns and through the air. Tokumaha Pakarori has 13. Did he add much to the year? He added a little bit, but Vanilla Vic, he has 400. So he has 25 total touchdowns. If we look at the touchdown numbers, he does lead. And you got Des Stiffy here as well, 1,418. Did he do anything through the air? No, not really. So who do you go for one then? Do you go with the yardage, about 400 more yards for Darren Archer for one, or do you put Vanilla Vic one? Vic over Archer? Okay. All right, so for right now, we'll do Vanilla Vic. And that's East Carolina. First time I've had a Team of the Year player in a little bit, a couple of years. Vanilla Vic was Team of the Year in Season 11. He, 2-year hiatus, makes it back for now. And then Darren Archer at 2 is what you guys are saying? Remember, this is a team effort. Yeah, and obviously the Natty win. UNLV, I don't think we have ever have a, so I gotta go to the G5 here to get their player. Where are they? They're all gray. I have trouble seeing this. All right, here we go. There we go. All right, so if you're following along, folks, we got Saunders, Beavers, then Vic and Archer right now. Yeah, he won the Natty. He also had like 200. He's like in the CFP MVP race. I think that race completely comes down to Vic versus Trace. So I got to figure out which one had the better year. So now we go to always my favorite thing to look at when we do this is the receivers. Now, Daryl Bain is not officially an SFA player, so we can't put him. He is... But Percy Knox quietly having a good year. I mean, he had obviously the entire playoffs. I think it's pretty simple. I mean, I think Percy Knox still deserves a shout. Asher definitely deserves a shout. He missed 3 games. He still was this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th. Obviously, Dickens has 20 touchdowns. He's going to be on there again. We all know it. He won the Belentikov. But if you look at total touchdowns here, it's Dickens and Knox. I think we lock those 2 in because they both have touchdowns. They both have yardage. And I think that you probably put Knox a little bit higher because he had the 2 natty TDs. And then from there, like, we could talk about Wild Goose here. He had 15 touchdowns. He only had 1,100 yards. He had only 1 pick. But remember, the defensive stats don't play into his wide receiver. So he had 1,100. He had 15 touchdowns, 56 yards on the ground. Bryson Warden, he had 1,314 touchdowns. So let's take a look here. All right, so I think we can all pretty much agree it's Knox and Dickens at 1 and 2. So I think that Percy Knox will finish his career because he just went ballistic. And it only makes sense that the receiver and the duos, like, they flip, but that's okay. And then we have let's just do Julius Dickens. Don't want to ruin my formatting here. Okay, now number 3. This is where it gets spicy. So do you do Tyreek Asher? He had 1,500 yards, 13 touchdowns. We have Jude Abraham. He had 1,500 yards, 11 touchdowns. Now, I would give a little bit of more love to, like, a Tyreek Asher just because Oklahoma State was so surprising. Bryson Warren, he had 1,300 yards and 14 TDs. Chris Beach, not SFA guy. Or SFA players only. Drew Stowey is an SFA player, but just not enough touchdowns for these guys. So, yeah, so the only other guy we'd consider is, like, a Wild Goose. So we have 2 spots that I think are down to Shaquille Wild Goose, Bryson Warden, Jude Abraham, or Tyreek Asher. So we can only do 2. Now, I think I kind of want to go Bryson Warden, and I want to go Tyreek Asher, probably Tyreek Asher first, because of the surprising and how important these 2 players were. Yeah. So I think we drop down Abraham. He has less touchdowns, and he has a less average compared to Warden. So now who goes higher? Do you do Asher, or do you do Warden? Yeah, I think just not enough yards for Wild Goose, Jay Jettas. So who goes higher? Because Maryland undefeated, but they went 1 and done. Oklahoma State, they lost their bowl game. Asher did miss games, so he would have done way more as well. So I think we're going to go Tyreek Asher because he missed games. He missed 3 games, and he still put up that crazy stat line. So now I got to go find Oklahoma State. We're getting a lot of new blood here. Love to see it. So I think right now we're going to go Tyreek Asher at 3, and then we'll go Bryson Warden. Let's make sure I'm spelling this right. The SFA in-game recruit, Bryson Warden, over from Maryland. Remember, I will update all of this onto the database so you can see players' histories, but right now it's only in the history sheet. So let me find Maryland. Maryland at 33. All right. So now as we move on to tight end is always difficult. So now we got to figure out, like, I mean, this might be, I always kind of go by yardage here, and then we just go till we see them, because there's no way to really factor out the tight ends. Now, do you put Vlad Sexton in the conversation just for breaking out in the CFP? I mean, he didn't have a good game at all in the Natty. So Phil Mills, he's not an SFA player. Buggy Gumption, yeah, we definitely need to look at Buggy, but we definitely need to go by stats. Malika Fruz here, great year, despite missing some. Amanra Lauha, over 1,000, great year. So if you want to see some of your stats from your players, you'll see them in here. So we're looking for SFA tight ends. Terrell Pryor. Todd Honey does not count as a tight end. We cannot. Todd Honey was a tight end, but he got moved to a wide receiver, so he's no longer eligible for tight end, Jay Jettas. So don't even try it. Kier Streaker hit the #1 recruit freshman year, finishes with 895 and 5 touchdowns. Chris Mason was great, but not an SFA player. Remember, this is yardage that we're going by. Kevin Kramer, not an SFA player. All right, I'm going to start going a little faster here. All right, tight ends. Cotton. David Manning, not an SFA guy. Ken Gilliam. Caleb Broussard is an SFA player. So Caleb Broussard, he's 686, 6 touchdowns. Yeah, we'll sort by touchdowns as well, see if we missed any. And then Uncle Boozer here as well, 667 and 4. So obviously you give the edge to Caleb Broussard here. We haven't, no, there's no Whoopty Tibbs. He got hurt, and Tracy Poach, just definitely no chance. Let's just go a little bit. Let's go to the 500 mark for tight end, and then we'll check by touchdowns as we look at all these wide receivers. Aaron Taylor, not an SFA player. Kason Moist, SFA player there, but he's a wide receiver. Laz Palmer finishes 600 yards, 3 touchdowns. Yeah, we don't have any, like, standout tight ends. Like, I'm looking for, like, an Axel Brooks, maybe. Vlad Sexton didn't really sim well. He played very well. Sterling Charbonneau had 561 and 5. Don't know if that beats Boozer. Shannon American has 548 and 7. All right, Shannon American. He has 7, so I think probably Shannon American might jump because I think tight end touchdowns are a bit more important. Dave Barnett, not an SFA player. Shannon had a couple. Yeah, Shannon had some good play, especially on running the ball that one game. So he definitely has rushing yards. Justin Gilmore. All right, we're almost to that marker. Yeah, nobody else over 500 yards. All right, let's check touchdowns now. So any tight ends with crazy touchdown numbers? Josh Whitfield, not SFA guy. Chris Mason had 12, not an SFA player though. Hart, not SFA. Tight end's one of the hardest ones to always lock down. John Young, nope. We need some better SFA players at tight end. Michael Francis. Gillum. Tate. Yeah, so we're looking at the touchdowns here. Greer. So Shannon American looks to be, I think, one of the top two. So I think Shannon American you definitely put in there. Probably at number 1 if we're being honest. Because Caleb Broussard, he had a little bit more yards. Yeah, I think Caleb Broussard, 686 compared to... Where is he? 686 compared to 548, I think still trumps. So I think you put Caleb Broussard first. Now let's just check because I know that we had... Because somebody mentioned Sterling Charbonneau rushing. He might have some rushing ability here. So when he pops up, I know he had 5 touchdowns. So let's look. We'll just look at Sterling Charbonneau here. There's Axel Brooks. He had 5, but not a lot of yardage. Come on. And I don't see any gumption either. Okay, Sterling Charbonneau, he had 561, so similar yardage to Shannon American. Now, rushing. What did he do rushing? He had 170 and he had 2. Does that... He gets to the 7 touchdown mark. Is that enough for you guys to put him over Broussard? I think we keep Shannon. Or no, we keep Broussard first. Who do we put? Because you only get 2. Broussard better. Okay, so we're going to go with American and Broussard. And we're going to put... Are we going to put Broussard first, I think? Yeah, I think it's a pretty... Okay, let me just find Caleb Broussard again. So I spell his name right. So, Caleb Broussard. Georgia just breeds tight ends. Broussard. Do we have a Georgia guy here? Guess I don't have Georgia, so let me go to Power 5. They're the top team. Okay, and then... Alright, and then we'll go up to Shannon American. So, after being a bust, Shannon American comes back. I think a lot of this is his performance he had in the bowl game. Shannon Americans. Let's go find D-Sleep here. Let's go find Group of 5. North Texas. Alright, so now the fun part. I love doing the offensive lineman because it's just pretty much a pancake party. So, how it works is we have 5 slots on the offensive line. If your spot on the line is taken, then you flip to the other side or you go somewhere else, okay? So, we'll just do the top 5, basically. All right, so I always sort by pancakes first. So, holy shit! Craig Scotland, 76 pancakes, no sacks. I did consider him for SFA Player of the Year, but I didn't think I'd give SFA Player of the Year to an offensive lineman. So, we're going to go Craig Scotland. He is the #1 player again. Or no, last year was Nigel Pancake. He was on the right side last year. But he gets his left tackle spot this year. Craig Scotland. Now, if you're looking for a guy to go to the Hall of Fame from the offensive line, he definitely could be that kind of a player. Because that, holy Toledo. This is definitely a great pick there. You want him to go to the TP? I don't know about that. He's vibing at Arizona here. All right, so let's continue on. See who is next. We have nobody here. Gore as well played very well, part of Tulsa's success. Don't pay attention to those numbers on the right side. So 58 pancakes and 2 sacks here for Hung Wong. So for the moment, we're going to make him on. He was center last year, so he's going to go to right tackle this year. Hung Wong. I think that's pretty fair. We can always come back and change it if somebody else has none. It's always kind of just going by pancakes. Gene Williams, non-SFA player. Pat Malahalo, the freshman, goes 51-3, and he had an injury. So I think that's pretty impressive. So because he is a left tackle, he'll go into the left guard spot. So Pat Malahalo, the freshman. So got to get Nebraska here. And I don't think that trumps. He has a couple less pancakes and gave up a little bit more sacks. So that makes sense that Hung Wong is higher than him. All right, so we have 2 more spots. Fox Crater, the senior from Georgia Tech. All right, so we'll 49-2, so he'll go in there. Georgia Tech finally getting success, and we have a true center getting in on here. Normally that's just like the worst case scenario, but or the last wind. But yeah, so Georgia Tech, great year for Coach Mike. All right, so one more spot, that right guard spot. Look at Amonra. We don't put wide receivers or tight ends on here because they just get too many. Mark Schlereth is an SFA player. However, he has 5 sacks. So if somebody has like 47 or 48, then I think we go somewhere else. Yeah, Caden Sanker. All right, who do you guys think gets the last spot? Do you go Schlereth with 48 and 5, or do you go Caden Sanker at 47 and 1? Sanker, yeah, I think it's Sanker. So Missouri getting up on here. Congrats to Missouri. My former player. It's all right. I won the Natty without him. So, but he would have been blocking. Jackie Knight all day. Might have had better success there. All right. So right now, our offense here is looking like this is the SFA Team of the Year offense. So this is an offense that should go undefeated. Flynn Saunders and Rex Beavers at quarterback. You got Vanilla Vic and Darren Archer. Percy Knox, Julius Dickens, Tyreek Asher, and Bryson Warden at wide receiver. Caleb Broussard and Shannon American. And then at offensive line, Craig Scotland, Pat Malahalo, Fox Crater, Caden Sanker, and Hung Wong on the offensive side. So now we transition to defense, folks, and defense is always very difficult to figure out. So we're going to start with the defensive line. So as always for defensive line, number 1, and this is how it's going to be, Xavier James. He was a freak. He's your SFA Player of the Year. No ifs, ands, or buts. He led in TFLs, and he did lead in sacks as well. There's just no way you don't give Xavier James this number 1 spot. App State was just a sim freak. Now, I think second, you go with Nathaniel Bandit. I mean, if we search by TFLs, he's second, and he's second in sacks. So he's right behind Xavier James. So the LSU guy, I think, pretty obvious, pretty easy. He made Team of the Year last year. Nathaniel Bandit in his senior year. So now this is where it could get tricky. Yeah, I wish there was a way to do Pro Bowl as well. So if we look at sacks, which is what we're looking at now, you got Quay Camaro, SFA player from Southern Miss, 10.5 sacks. He had 32 TFLs. He's right up there in both. Now you have the SFA player Josiah Bird as well, 9.5 and 28. You also have Maximo Drew, the SFA player over from Arkansas State. However, I think that you put Bird above him just because of playoff success. Is that where we go? I think I should search by the... so this is sacks. P.N.A. Litton, the SFA player, he only had 8.5 and 22. Now, is there any, like, crazy interceptions or fumble numbers for these guys? Not really. A couple deflections or defensive touchdowns. We had one for Hill. Yeah, no. Gilbert is not an SFA player. He is the golden ticket player, though. He will be in the transfer portal. Yes, any SFA reject, IGR, or player are eligible. But Gilbert, he is a golden ticket player. He'll be in the transfer portal, but he's not eligible for Team of the Year. So let's search by TFLs once again. So Camaro, I think, is that 3 spot. Jackie Knight, okay. So we have a decision to make here. Okay, so I think it's pretty obvious you put Quay Camaro at 3. But for 4, we have a couple of options. You can go Jackie Knight. He had 30 TFLs. He had 8 sacks. He did have an interception. Or do you go Jamarian Sippins? He did 28 as well, 8.5. Or do you go Josiah Bird? He had 9.5. He had 28. Okay, so is a sack and a half better than 2 TFLs? And then you also have the natty difference. So do you go... But Jackie Knight had an interception. I'm leaning Jackie Knight. No, so we only have 4 total for the defensive line total. No, so just 4 D lines. So anybody on the defensive line. So do you go Jackie Knight or do you go Maximo Drew? Like I said, I think he doesn't have the success. You could go Jamarian Sippins, but he has less sacks and interceptions. So why would you go Jamarian Sippins? He has 28 TFLs. He has 8.5 versus Jackie Knight, 30 and 8. That's half a sack. And then he also has the interception. And then you also have Bird, who has more sacks, and he has the natty. Is there anybody else to consider? I think we go Yaz Sussy. No, only 5.5. Oh, you're saying the at D tackle is more impressive? I didn't think about that. Now, total tackles, you have 78 for Knight, 71 for Sippins, but only 64 for Bird. All right. One interception is an outlier. All right, well, let's look at Sippins. Let's see if the fumbles... Okay, but you also see, look at this. You have 4 fumble forced for Knight. He had 2 recoveries. Nothing here for Sippins. And nothing else. You guys are putting Sippins over Knight. I think Knight should get it, but... You guys are going the D end, or the D tackle. Put in your final picks. Lean Knight. Okay. So Jackie Knight gets in there. He had 2 sacks in the natty. And who is he with? He's with A&M. Okay. So now we go to linebacker. And linebacker is a lot about tackles. It's a lot about kind of everything. Now, the first and foremost I think we have to look at is Stevie Scumbag, the linebacker from Iowa State. He got the Buckus. He has all of the awards. 112 total tackles, 87 solo. He led the country, I believe, in the regular season at least. 11 TFLs. He had 4 sacks, 1 pick, 2-2-1, and no interceptions. Okay, so let's just go down the line here for SFA players. So in terms of total tackles, Bert Osborne is an SFA player. He had 13 TFLs, so he had more than Scumbag. He had 4.5 sacks, that's more. He had no interceptions, though, and he was unable to do any forcing of fumbles or anything. So I think you put Scumbag easily over Osborne. Skip Stackle, another SFA player. He had 1.5 sacks, a little more TFLs, only 1 interception. Kind of active there, but I don't know if that will get it done. Andy Clapp, SFA player from Buffalo. He had 14. You had 1. I don't know if that gets done. And then if we're looking right below there as well, LaWayne Streveler, the SFA player from Oklahoma. He has 20 TFLs. Bud Peeler also has 20 TFLs. 6.5 sacks. I think that's the most we've seen. I think Streveler probably has to be up there. Bud Peeler is up there. Tex Sargent, he only has 7 TFLs, no interceptions. I don't think he gets up there. Percy Lockhart, 20 TFLs, 4.5. Let's see anybody else up here. Drake Eklund, 1 pick. He had 18 TFLs, 2 sacks. All right, so let's go by interceptions here if there's any crazy interception guys at linebacker, because these are all corners. We'll come back to corner when we're picking them. All right, Kamari Cruz, the SFA player here. He had 5 interceptions. I think 5 interceptions is quite a lot. Now, we only get to pick 3. No defense. Oh, he had 2 defensive touchdowns. Yeah, right now I'm thinking Scumbag, Streveler, and maybe Kamari Cruz. We'll see if there's anybody else here. Linebackers. Because interceptions with 2 defensive scores is kind of nutty. As we go by defensive scores, I don't think anybody has more than 2. So Ramsar has 3, but Kamara Cruz at linebacker has 2. Alright, so I think Kamara Cruz has to be on here. I think you go Stevie Scumbag for sure, because of the sheer amount of tackles. So I'm okay going Scumbag, Streveler, and then Cruz. Anybody want a different order? I could see Streveler going ahead of Scumbag because he has 20 TFLs and 6.5 sacks. Streveler might be better. But I also think Kamari Cruz should get the shout for the 5 picks because that's nutty. Does anybody have an opinion before I lock that in? Scum, Streveler, Cruz. Yeah. Alright. So, well, Jay Jettas, let's talk about team success. You lost in the opening round. Iowa State won their bowl game. Also, like, linebacker is, like, super tackle heavy. Like, Streveler. Streveler didn't even get on the list last year. That's crazy. Alright, so Stevie Scumbag. That's one that we can think on. I might switch it, but I think for right now we honor what Iowa State was able to do. Because Iowa State still had a good season. It's not like they're like a 5-7 team. LaWayne Streveler at Oklahoma. And then we have Kamari Cruz. Let me just make sure I spelled all this right. Go down to the 20s here. A lot of people had 6.5, but LaWayne Streveler, spelled that right? Alright, and then we'll go to defensive touchdowns. Kamari Cruz over at Texas. Do we have a Texas man? No, we don't. So he stayed behind after Dave left, and he gets Team of the Year. Interesting. Alright. Queen didn't make it last year with 100+ tackles. Too late. Well, Streveler definitely deserves to be on there. Now, I think I'm going to switch him because 20 TFLs and 6.5 sacks at linebacker is really good. And I think that makes up for, like, there's 9 extra TFLs. I think I have to put Streveler first. I think that's just I think you got to reward the sacks. Like the extracurriculars. It's not just tackle merchant. I think we got to flip that. Shut up, J. Jettas. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for Luane Streveler. No, I think you have to, like, 9 more TFLs, 2.5 more sacks. Same thing for everything. All right, so let's go to cornerback. Okay, so corners really rely on deflections and interceptions. So we're going to sort by interceptions. I don't think there's any way that we don't give it to Alphonso Sampson at number 1. He was incredible for this team all year long. He had 2 defensive touchdowns. I think Alphonso Sampson is a clear and far away number 1 here, and I don't really think it's close. Almost had the lead in the entire country. Now, Jaden Smush is an SFA player. Now, this is one. He had 7 interceptions. He had 8 deflections. No defensive touchdowns. Now, this is one where you could get passed over from team success. This team only won 4 games. So, if there's a close thing here, Jaden Smush may not make it. But he is an SFA player. So another SFA player is Boogie Shamar, the SFA player from Northwestern. They had a great year. They won 8 games. He had 6 interceptions. He had 10 deflections, so more than Shmush. He had more forced fumbles. He had a fumble recovery. He did have a defensive touchdown. So I think Boogie Shamar does trump Jaden Smush at this point. Now, is there anybody else here at corner? So Ike Wishbone of... Now, did he do anything crazy? He didn't have a lot of TFLs. He had 5 interceptions, 6 deflections. I don't think he goes ahead of Shmush. Now, team success shouldn't matter too much. We only get 3 corners here. Freddie Funyuns, the SFA player. Now, he had 2 sacks, and he had 10 TFLs. Okay, so this is interesting. So you have Funyuns. He has a lot more tackles, a lot more sacks as an SFA player. He had 5 interceptions. No defensive touchdowns and no forced fumble. He had 1 forced fumble and 7 deflections. So, well, we'll check on deflections here in a second. I think 5 is a good cutoff here for interceptions. So we'll go through these. Now we're into 4. Okay, so let's sort by deflection. Joe Hayden, the SFA player, the redshirt senior. He only had 3 picks. Well, I think it factors in Dogwater because it does, like, to be on the team of the year, you gotta be, you know, you have to be impactful. So, I only use that when I'm splitting hairs. So, like, a Joe Hayden here, he has 21 deflections. He did have he had a block and a defensive touchdown. Do you give Joe Hayden a shout? No TFLs or sacks. So Raheem Azuna's not he's a safety. Armani Sanders, he was on the, on LSU. He had 3 TFLs, only 4 interceptions, though. I don't think we give him a shout. Doesn't have anything crazy there. Looking just at the deflection numbers. Nothing insane. Hugh Dunnett, SFA player. He had 3 interceptions. Okay, so where do we go from here? Because I think that you go Boogie Shamar at 2. I think that is a fair assessment at this point. But where do you go for 3? I think there's 3 guys that you could really consider. So I think we put Boogie at 2. So I think here we're kind of considering, I think we're considering a couple of teams, or I think we're considering Jaden Smush. He has 7 interceptions. He has 8 deflections and a forced fumble. He only has 2 TFLs. I think you go next up. Next guy to consider is Freddie Funyuns. He has 10 TFLs, 2 sacks. He has 2 less interceptions. He has 1 less deflection. He has the same forced fumble. Or I think you go for the deflection master, Joe Hayden. 21 deflections, only 3 picks though. And he has 2 fumbles forced. He has a block and a defensive touchdown. So who do you give? So I personally would probably go Freddie Funyuns here. But out of Smush, Hayden, or Funyuns, where are you guys landing? I think Freddie Funyuns, just because he does TFLs. He had a couple of sacks. Anybody have a varying opinion? Smush is on Virginia Tech, who only won 4 games this year. You have Joe Hayden on FIU, who was not bowl eligible either. And then you have Freddie Funyuns. They won their division in the Big Ten. Cabbage is thinking, Hayden, you're giving me Smush. All right, I say Funyuns. So we have a complete split here in chat. Dogwater, who do you think gets it? If you're going by team success, you go Freddie Funyuns. He has the more split out, or, he has the more stats across the board. Now, Smush has more interceptions, but Joe Hayden is a deflection monster in the Sun Belt. Yeah, no, I mean, I can make the final decision, but yeah, I am old and retired. You like Hayden. Alright, so we're going with the deflections. Now, that makes sense because he has 13 more deflections than these other guys. So he's in a lot more of those plays. I'm okay giving it to Hayden because he also has the block. He has the defensive touchdown. Like, he was just, like, more of a all-around player. Alright, I'm okay giving it to, I'm okay giving that to Joe Hayden. So, Joe Hayden, FIU, in his final year. Joe Hayden has been on so many different teams. He's transferred, I think, every year of his career almost. So FIU gets one. So that is Coach, I'm forgetting his name. All right, so now safety. Safety is always so difficult because it's like a mix of everything. So we really haven't talked about any safeties yet. Oh, man. So do we see any safeties in the picks here? Okay, so there's a couple. So we'll see if I see any safeties in the picks. We kind of just got to go by every stat and just see if we see anybody crazy. I don't think it was all that great of a year for safeties, if we're being honest. Now, Cassius Dreyer at Buffalo, he had a really good playoff. So he had 63 tackles, he had 7 TFLs, he had 1 sack, 4 interceptions, no forced fumbles, though, and he didn't get a defensive touchdown, but he did get a block. Okay, so that's somebody to keep in mind, because he did have a really good playoff. Keyshawn Clemmings, he didn't play much this year. I don't think you can give him a Team of the Year shout. Dante Bruton, he had... Did he do something crazy? He had 4 picks, he had 2 TFLs. I think you still have Dreyer higher. Remember, we're looking for safeties. Now, this is interchangeable. We don't have free safety or strong safety. It's just the top 2 safeties. Yeah, we gotta look at... We'll sort by tackles as well. So, once we get to the end of 3 interceptions, I think is when we look somewhere else. Just looking at safeties here. Trying to find the safeties. It's so hard to find the stats. Wish you could sort by position, but you can't. Still at 3 interceptions. A lot of people here with 3 picks. So, a lot of SFA. Okay, Xander Poole, he had 42 tackles, less than Dreyer. He had 1 TFL, no sacks. Couple deflections, but nothing crazy. I don't think that's... We haven't even seen Jay Phoenix. Jay Jettas, I don't know, why are you talking about him? Saeed Champagne, SFA player. He had a great playoff. He made a critical pass deflection in that last game. He had the game-winning interception against LSU. He had 4 TFLs. No sacks. He had 3 picks, 4 deflections. He had a fumble forced. Did he do anything else? He had a defensive touchdown throughout the year. That's pretty good. And let's see where we are on interceptions here. We're still on 3, so we want to get to 2 here. There we go. We're on 2. All right, so let's go back to tackles, see if there's any crazy guys. Welcome in, Cryo. We're just picking team of the year. We're on safety, so we're looking for safeties with a lot of tackles here. So I'm just going to kind of scroll till I see safety. A lot of linebackers here. And then obviously Xavier James just sticking his thumb up there. Definitely one of the best individual seasons we've ever seen from Xavier James. Okay, Matt Love, not an SFA player. Archer is is number 2 at running back right now. Thrash Daniels didn't have enough for a linebacker. He's not a safety. I think we do have to look at Lachey Phantom. I gotta find where he is, because Lachey Phantom was everywhere. I think he deserves a look. Safety is a lot more, you kind of look for who played well. Nobody's jumping off the page with stats here. Because tackle-wise, yeah, we're in the 70s here. Nothing crazy. You start still going, still going, still going. Got a corner there. Strong safety. Who is this? Wayne Miller? Nope. Corners, safety. Jason Johnson, non-SFA. Keep going, keep going. Scott Jackson, nope. Matt Jack, nope. Joe Smith, nope. Willie Nelson, nope. Free safety, who is this? Aaron Chase, nope. Alright, here we go. Dylon Sarnecki, SFA player. He had 5 TFLs, 1 sack, 2 interceptions, 8 deflections. Nothing crazy, I don't think, there. So, I'm not thinking... I'm thinking that we go... Okay, what did Winnie Corso do? He had same here. Okay, Winnie Corso. Hold the phone, folks. Is Winnie Corso going to get a team of the year? Winnie Corso, he has 14 TFLs to the 7 from Dreyer. He had 2 sacks. No interceptions from Corso. He's much more of a run stopper. He had 3 pass deflected. He did have a forced fumble. He had a block as well. I think we might have our 2 right here. Not a lot of options so far. Here's Taylor Sockrider. He has less TFLs, no sacks. He has 1 interception. Yeah, no. As we continue to look, Tyson Coffey here didn't do much. The only other contender would be, I think, Saeed Champagne, but I don't think he gets on here. Benny Simmons is not an SFA player. Just looking, and I think we gotta go Winnie Corso and Cassius Dreyer. I think now there's one player who I can't find. who I need to look at his stats, though. So we need to go look at... We need to go look at Lachey Phantom, see what he did. Because he was all over the field. So Lachey Phantom, he wound up with 59 tackles. He had only 2 TFLs, no sacks, only 1 interception on the year. That's not going to get you on Team of the Year. He was all over the place, but he just didn't do much. So yeah. So, okay. So now we got to figure out, is it going to be Corso or is it going to be... God, I don't... Alright, so we got to just go to the teams here. Let's go to Buffalo. So who do you think is a better fit for number 1? Do you go Cassius Dreyer? He had 7 TFLs, 1 sack. He did have the 4 interceptions and 7 deflections. Or do you go with Corso, who is... It's really... Are you going... Which one are we valuing more? Do you value a run defense or do you value ball hawk? Now, Buffalo did have a better season. Charlotte did not play well. They had the same amount of tackles. I think you go Dreyer, but because 4 interceptions, like there's no interceptions here for Corso. So run defense is way more important. Now he does have double the TFLs and double the sacks, but I think he doesn't have interceptions. I think the difference is the interceptions here. If Winnie Corso had 1, I think I'd put him first, but I think Winnie Corso gets second. So I think we go Cassius Dreyer here. I think Cassius Dreyer. And then I think you go Winnie Corso at number 2. So you go from Devontae Billings to Winnie Corso getting Team of the Year. I think that's fair. Alright. So now let's take a look at kicking. We got to find an SFA kicker and an SFA punter. It's going to be tough to do. Alright, so I typically go by percentage here. So Jeongwa Jungkook, SFA player here, he had 91%. He did have 1 blocked. He went 35-36 on the extra points. Is there another guy here that did better? I don't think so. I think it's pretty blatant. Yeah, Bruno Ferrari's the next. He went 10 of 12. That's not going to do it. Toto Sucky. That's not going to do it. 15 of 18. So, yeah, I think it's pretty easy. It's going to be Jeongwa Jungkook. Jeongwa Jungkook. And he's from South Carolina. Very interesting Team of the Year this year. Now we got to find a punter. Who's the best punter? Now what do you value for punter? Is it yardage? Is it attempts? Or average? Thumper Jones is an SFA player. He had 41. So he's the top in the average, but he only kicked it 41 times. Now, is there anyone close? Because he had 45.1. Anybody else here? As far as average, Guy Beard, he averaged about 10 less here, or a couple less. He had more punts, though. Yeah, okay, so net. So Thumper Jones wins that. Now, punts inside, you got 27 here. Okay, did somebody blow him out of the water? Because it might mess up your average if you're always punting inside the 20, right? So you only, let's see. I don't see anybody here. Nobody yet. Guy Beard, he had 18 and a 36 average. Oh, that's minus return yards. So 43 and 18. And then Thumper Jones, he has 17 and 45. So I think you give it to Jones. 1 less inside the 22, more average. So do you give it to Beard or do you give it to Thumper Jones? I don't see anybody else here that's worth a dang. We do. I mean, I always put punters in, but it's hard to. Yeah, it's hard to see them. Willie Anderson, he had 39.2 as a punter and only 12 inside, so he's definitely not. Blast didn't do well, it looks like, Jay Jettas. I don't see Blast anywhere. Blast, he only had 11 downed, and he averaged 39. He is not going to be our guy. So I think it goes to Thumper Jones. Great name, Thumper Jones, out of USC. All right, folks, so before we get on out of here, let's go back through and let me know if there's anything you want to look at again, because nothing is finalized. We can go back and re-look. So as we recap the Season 14 Team of the Year, it is quarterback 1 is Flynn Saunders. Then we have Rex Beavers. At running back, we have Vanilla Vic and Darren Archer. At wide receiver, we have Percy Knox, Julius Dickens, Tyreek Asher, and Bryson Warden. We have Caleb Broussard and Shannon American. Then at offensive line, we have Scotland, Malahalo, Crater, Sanker, and Wong. At defensive line, we have Xavier James, Nathaniel Bandit, Quay Camaro, and Jackie Knight. At linebacker, you have, so Flynn Saunders, Appalachian State. You got Rex Beavers, Texas A&M. At running back, you have Vanilla Vic, East Carolina. Darren Archer, UNLV. Percy Knox, Texas A&M. Julius Dickens, Appalachian State. Tyreek Asher, Oklahoma State. Bryson Warden at Maryland. Caleb Broussard, tight end at Georgia. Shannon American, North Texas. Offensive line is Craig Scotland, Arizona. Pat Malahalo at Nebraska. Fox Crater from Georgia Tech. Caden Sanker from Missouri. Hung Wong from Buffalo. And on defense, Xavier James, defensive line, App State. Nathaniel Bandit, LSU. Quay Camaro, Southern Miss. Jackie Knight from A&M. And then at linebacker, we have Lil Wayne Streveler at Oklahoma. Stevie Scumbag at Iowa State. Kamari Cruz at Texas. So it seems like the Big 12 is linebacker U. And then corner is Alfonso Sampson, Georgia Tech. Boogie Shamar, Northwestern. Joe Hayden, FIU. And then safety is Cassius Dreyer from Buffalo. Winnie Corso, Charlotte. Kicker, Youngwa Jungkook, South Carolina. And punter is Thumper Jones. And you can see all of this in the history sheet. We have a full history sheet, folks. It has all the SFA players here. And I'm just looking through one last time here, folks, before I finalize this. Just to make sure. And yeah, Dogwater, I'll show you Luigi. We can go to Arizona if you want. I got a ton of stuff to do, so I'm not going through every team or anything. But I'll go through Arizona. This is the end of an era over there. And you can finally put Tavarius Trace above Josh Gamara for what he done. Okay, so let's go check out Arizona for you. All right, so Josh Gamara finishes his career. This is what it looks like, 112-41. Remember, I'm going to update the season leaders and the career leaders either tonight or tomorrow. But he had a decent season this year. It just didn't have the defense. And then it's crazy. Over this season, they both got over 1,000 yards, Huffman and Bowers. So they combined would have been a Heisman had he not gotten injured. So he still got above 1,000 yards. That's pretty impressive. And then catching the ball, it was Greenberg. He had 377, 2 touchdowns. Wishbone finishes 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns. Scotland, obviously, insane over there. And then you had nobody on defense left, really, except for, where is he? Perry Williams here. Perry Williams only had 1 pick this year. All right, so that will do it for the Team of the Year stream. All of this stuff we've done today will be available on YouTube a little bit later. I am going to finalize a couple of things, and I'm going to try to get the highlight videos out a little bit later here. But yeah, so I'm going to get the coaching carousel hopefully going tonight. And then it will take a few days to set up the transfer portal. I don't know. I'm going to do it as fast as I can because I want this season to go quicker than last season. But as you guys know, there's really not much we're like trying to go fast for, as we have to wait for the new game anyways. So I'm going to be a little bit more relaxed on the schedule this offseason. But I'm still going to try to grind it out, as this is my Super Bowl pretty much is when it starts getting really rough on me. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.